multinational companies are there in a lot of those locations because they see the benefit of the talent pool that's available there, and secondly they want to be in that market. So one of the things that probably as an intro is worth mentioning that it's really important for anybody who wants to be a meaningful player in today's economy. You cannot not think global. If you do that, then you are automatically putting yourself at a disadvantage. Your competitors are global, your labor is global. At one point of the world, you might have been selling to one guy to another guy in the neighborhood, but now everything is at a level playing field, right? So if you're not operating in that environment, then you're at a disadvantage. That's the honest truth. Especially if you want to be something meaningful. If you want to be, like our aspiration is to get $2 billion, global has to be part of the strategy.
Yeah. You guys are at 300 million right now?
300 million.
300 million?
Right. So
what are you guys going to do next year? Are you like really exponentially growing at a rate, or is $1 billion maybe 10 years down the road?
No, I hope not. That's our, we want to get there. The vision is, and I think ultimately it's more about the philosophy versus just the pure numbers. Numbers is a result of something that you do, right?
Yeah.
But what we are trying to do is build a company that can be different and that can last, right? That's what we want to do. And so as part of that, what we are doing is we are focused on growing organically. So we are hiring people in the U.S. We are making expansion plans overseas. We're making investments. We made a major investment I can talk about in India. And then we are also looking at inorganic. We are looking at buying companies. We just made an acquisition this year, so that's part of that. So what I was going to say, on the being global. So one of the things that's really fascinating is a study that was done by McKinsey some time back now. It's probably dated, but the trend's still relevant. I think is by the year 2025, most of the industry trends are saying that the growth driven by what is called the so-called emerging countries, or the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, China countries, that will exceed the buying power of the U.S. So think about that trend for a second.
Really?
U.S. has a lot of power. There's a lot of buying power over here. But if by 2025,
that's just right around the corner.
That's right around the corner. If your client base is dramatically shifting to places where the middle class is growing, which is a lot of these developing emerging countries, then if you are a company that wants to grow your business, you cannot not think about those aspects, right?
Yeah. Now, what are people's biggest challenges of going there? You guys have done it successfully, but there's reason. I think most companies would recognize today in 2017 and where we're going with technology in the next couple of years, you have to expand globally or you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely, yeah.
No matter what. What's the biggest barrier for that for other companies?
No, so let me respond to your first comment, which is we've done it successfully.
Yeah. And first off, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
And are we going to just go with Ash then?
You can go with Ash. Yeah,
we'll go with Ash. All right. Well, cool. Thanks for officially being on the Mile High Mentors podcast.
Absolutely.
And, just had to plug that in real quick, but please go ahead. I really want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So let me let me just also before I get to the success, and I think that I will humbly say that we've been successful, but we've also learned a lot along the way.
And you've been with the company for
almost 5 years, right?
5 years.
So one of the things that the thing about, I want to put a plug in for Dices also, because that's one of the reasons why we're here talking. The thing that gets me excited every morning getting up is the history of this company, our CEO, his vision, and he's very dynamic, relatively young guy, my age roughly, and he had an opportunity to sell the company and pocket a very sizable sum several years ago, and he chose to build something to last. So that's what this company is about. That's what gets me excited. So everything that we do, whether it's US or international, is to build to last for long term, right? So that brings us to your question about the success factor, and there are a lot of barriers. And personally, I've made huge amounts of mistakes. And our CEO will say, it's a mistake if you do it twice. If you do it one time only, it's actually a lessons learned opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are a couple of things, when you want to, and this is informal, Connor, so, please jump in, if you want to go in a different tangent. I mean, I'm so passionate about this, I can talk for a very long time. But I think, one, going global is an important imperative for anybody who wants to be meaningful in the world that we are going to exist in the future. Right? Now, how do we get there? I think the first thing that I've learned is that you do have to make a commitment. In order to get $1 of revenue growing, it requires a lot of wherewithal. You can't just do it sort of half committed. You can't say, I'll just dabble in Brazil or I'll dabble in Switzerland. It doesn't work like that.
You have to be all in.
You have to be committed.
Yeah.
And what that means is, as an organization, you have to have the backing of your investors, your leadership team to make the commitment, to say that, hey, we're gonna, and I think it's better, if you're thinking about it, it's better to actually have a plan first. It's better to, rather than try it 50% to dabble it, just make sure that you've done your own analysis, that you're serious about it. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm not ready yet, right? But I'm going to do it when I am completely committed, right? So being committed is really important in my mind. And I've got plenty of examples where, unfortunately, in some cases we were not 100% there, and we didn't have the underlying structure, and it actually came back and bit us, right, in a big way. And so we said, what, lessons learned for us, if you do something, we'll do it seriously, we'll do it full force, we're not going to do it half-baked, right? And so we said, as part of a strategy, we'll focus on, markets that we believe in, we'll commit in those, and where it's going to take us a lot of, investment to get there. As an example, China is a great market. We're not in China. The reason why we're not in China is I know it's going to take us a lot of time, effort, to get into that market. It's a huge market. Canada is another one where every province is different. Think about the laws you have in the U.S. In Canada, every province has different laws. So in order for you to operate in Canada, you have to have understanding of each of every province, right? Yeah.
Now, I want to get deeper into that.
Sure.
Let's go here. Let's step back and just kind of rewind, because we're here to showcase you, and also I'm curious about you're a young dude, and you're in this awesome position where you're at right now. You're creating a lot of success for yourself, and you're offering incredible mentorship for other people, not only just here in the state of Colorado, but in the tech community out in California. Give us a premise. Let's start literally from your childhood. Tell us, where you originally came from and what your transition from childhood into your early 20s. That's really the interesting stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. So I think that's good enough. So I've I grew up in India. I was born in a town.
Where in India?
Yeah, in a town called Lucknow, which is about. Most people know New Delhi, which is the capital, so it's about a half-an-hour flight from there.
Okay.
I think it was humble beginnings. My parents came from a middle-class family. My dad worked for, basically the government organization here, there, and so what that taught me was a couple things. One is I never take anything for granted, because when we were growing up, resources were scarce. I mean, we didn't have running water every day, right? So my mom, when I was 8 years old, would say, "There's a bucket, go out, fill it up so we can cook food," right?
Wow.
And look, I
and that was your entire childhood?
And that was, a good part, of my childhood. And, so today, when I turn the tap on, even now, I think about that. Hey, this is not so bad. The water's running. I don't need the bucket. So that's good.
No more bucket, guys.
No more bucket. So I think that's.
And you got this scenery here, which can't beat that.
Yeah.
But is it a big city? Is it very city? Because New Delhi is a pretty big city, right? It's a booming. A lot of sky rises and
absolutely
stuff like that.
Now so this is, I'm going back more than 25, 30 years ago. So India is a much different place than I was when I'm a child. It is like I go there and I don't recognize. You have the Google logo and the Microsoft. You have it's like Silicon Valley in a lot of big places.
Yeah.
And what I meant by resources was scarce. didn't mean that resources didn't exist. It means that you had to fight for it, right? So, hey, there was the middle class at the time didn't have enough buying power. So, if you were rich, you had everything, and there was this divide. Now the middle class is growing there, so the middle class has a lot of buying power. So it was humble beginnings. That was one. The other thing was, because the resources were scarce, very early, we all had to adapt to being very competitive, because it was hey, if you want to go to a good college, as an example, the one that I went to, there was like 2,500 students enrolled, right? And there were 100,000 people that applied and competed for it. So
for 2,500
positions in that college, right?
Wow.
And so it was.
Is that pretty typical for
the top schools? Which I was fortunate to go to one of those, and it it was competitive. Meanings like if you wanted to have a shot, the thing was that you have to be good, you have to be hardworking, you have to be intelligent, and then you have to have some amount of luck, to have a shot in that, because the resources are scarce, and if you want to be at a good college, you really have to be. So I think that's where my background came from. It was middle class family, humble beginnings. I was fortunate enough to get some lucky breaks early on. And
what were those lucky breaks?
I think getting into good school.
You got into one of those 2,500
one of the top schools over there. So
yeah.
that at that point, and it was I'll take a little bit of credit for it. I got a lucky break, but it was.
You're a smart guy.
It was extremely hard working. I was a lot of hard work. I remember there were days. To get into this college, I slept 3 hours a day for like 3 months.
And how old were you at this time?
And that was when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
Now, when I got into the college, it was, at that point you felt like, hey, I have checked off the first major milestone in my life, because unless I really, really badly screw this up, I think I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So college for me, was actually, and I have a very fascinating story about that also. College for me it was a great time. It was like, we learned, they were all smart kids. I was in a good school, but at the bell-shaped curve, there was a lot of people on the right side of the curve than where I was sitting, right? So I got to talk to a lot of really bright people. The guy who was the CEO of Google, Sundi Pichai, he went by Sundi, was in the same dormitory as I was, and he was 2 years ahead of me.
Really?
He was part of our hazing and all that kind of stuff. So
wait.
So it was just like.
Wait, you have a story there, at least, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Sundi would. First of all, I don't know.
Do you guys still know each other?
No, I don't. He will not remember me for sure. Because,
Really?
But the way it worked was, if you're a junior. So the college was IIT Kharagpur was the name, near Calcutta. And Sundi was 2 years ahead of me in the basically class category, and then we were in the same hostel. So normally the way it went is, your first allegiance was to your hostel, to your dormitory. Everybody bonded, and then beyond that, it was your batch, and the department, like your major that you were in. So if you had somebody who was senior to you, they would normally not remember you, but if you had people junior to you, they always looked up at you, because you were like the more senior person that they would look up and aspire to become like, right? And so I actually, when I moved to Denver, I had a couple guys from my, junior to me a couple of years. They remembered me and I didn't remember them. So they were the ones who actually, I had them over for dinner one time, and they were remember, hey, do you know that Sundi is the CEO of Google? I'm like, so no, he would,
You're like, yeah, we're best friends.
I know. I would love to say that. I remember him, and
he's the current CEO of Google.
He is,
right now. Yeah.
And so I will
There's
tell you.
There's some interesting stuff going on over at Google.
Let me tell you this: that let's just put it this way.
Yeah.
That as part of my hazing, which Sundi was very nice, and he was a very professional, and he was very charismatic. Intelligent person. I had a lot of interaction with him during the time, and we all looked up at him because he was just a very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
And he's done some amazing things. He's gone, he's gone he's the CEO of one of the top companies in the world, right?
Yeah.
It was that kind of experience, going to college. College was a great time, and then, then getting my next break was getting an opportunity with a multinational company that was starting to look at Y2K work overseas. So right out of college, I worked
the
with
Y2K.
The Y2K bug.
Oh man!
I've got a lot of. I joke around that the work that I did created a lot of opportunity for people to fix.
Yeah.
So that was basically
What was that like? What was the formatting of that? Hey, Y2K is coming. We need. What technologies for this? Like, what was that conversation
at
like?
the time, there was I came to the U.S. around '97, right, roughly 20 years ago, and that was the time when Y2K was at the peak, right?
Yeah, so this was a 4-year college you went to.
Yeah, so I went to a 4-year college. That college my degree was in aerospace engineering.
Okay.
There was a lot of software involved in that, so my choice at the time was to go work for the government or go do what everybody else was doing, was go to a software company and come to the U.S. So I chose the same path. And
you came straight to, did you go to California?
I went to California.
Okay.
For a year and a half roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And then and from there I just ended up over here. So Y2K was, there was a lot of demand. People were looking for a lot of people to just come and just by brute force fix the issues, because people were essentially paranoid. That
security, right? Like cybersecurity and.
Well, I mean, it was just this. I think there was a lot of good work that went into it, but I think to some extent there was also this almost paranoia that planes would fall from the sky.
Yeah.
And that because the digit would change, right? And it didn't happen. And actually, I was one of the people who actually flew on December 31st, 1999,
oh, really?
Just to make a point that planes will not fall out of the sky.
That's badass.
Yeah, so it was good. We went to Vegas. I did have a room with a couple of buddies. And
so you're popping champagne on the plane?
Yeah, so if it goes down, it's because of the work that I did.
The dude next to you is sweating. He's nervous.
So I think that's how I got here.
Yeah.
So those are some breaks along the way, getting to a good college, getting to a multinational company, coming to California, moving to Colorado, building a network here, getting to DICES. I mean, it's just one good thing after another.
Yeah. How'd you get involved with? So California, you came to a tech company to begin with. Is that tech company still around?
Oh yeah, it's one of the largest Indian technology companies by the name TCS.
Okay.
And so it was, it's still.
Do they white label that as something else?
No, they're a very big company. They got hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
So because it was an Indian-based tech company,
right,
they're bringing students from your university and.
Yeah. So what they did was they would basically hire talent from engineering schools. Mm-hmm. And then they would train them, and then they would, after training for 3 to 4 months, they would put them onto client projects, consulting work, and so that's how we all got started. Yeah.
Do you feel like college was your kind of way into the States and into your education that you have now, or was it more street smarts? Was it more actually working with companies? Do you feel like you would have kind of been where you were today without college?
Absolutely not. There's just no way. I mean, my fundamental belief, maybe I'm a little bit too biased, that it's really important to have a good foundation of education. Mm-hmm. And for me, an undergraduate degree kind of establishes that. And then when I came to Denver, I also went and got an MBA at the Daniels Evening Program. Mm-hmm. And so
where's that at?
DU, right?
Oh, DU. Okay, gotcha.
So the school there is Daniels College of Business, right? So, I think what college at an undergraduate level does is just give you a really good foundation. Mm-hmm. It's not, from my perspective, it's not like you don't really get to be an expert in something, but you develop some really good skills. Well-rounded thinking. You because especially if you are going to like in a hostel kind of environment, you develop good social skills. If you are introverted growing up, and now you're exposed to many people from different facets of life, then you develop social skills and you develop a nice foundation. MBA for me was just the next level where, I wanted to go from purely a technical background to more business to business management.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say that while there isn't a direct correlation, like Dices didn't hire me because I had an MBA, but if I didn't have that business acumen that I developed, at Daniels College of Business, then I think, those are the things that you have to do along the way, right, in order to build a well-rounded portfolio. And another one that really played important in my life, which I actually think I shared with you over the phone, was mentorship.
Yeah.
Right? The higher you get in an organization, the more mentoring you need. It's like, some people don't really grasp that concept,
At some point, they feel like they get to a certain level, they don't need those.
Right. And actually, so I think the people who are, in those positions probably recognize that because, most people will get to that by being open-minded and humble about, their own selves, right, and self-awareness.
Yeah.
But I think, as an outsider, one might think that, hey, just because you're the CEO, you know it all, and the reality is actually the opposite. You need the most, so I was fortunate, in that I had mentoring from people in my company, from within Dices, from, somebody that I keep a relationship with, I mentioned earlier, and it's just, that mentoring. So education, you gotta have the foundation, hard work, luck, you want that.
Luck.
Right, and then, and then you have, you get a good education and you're, you get good mentoring. And I also think that part of it is also, I know we are going off the international topic, but but this is important. I think also a lot of this is also, I think human beings are capable of amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have to be pushed to your limits, right, to realize what you're capable of. I get complacent in my day-to-day, right? The last couple of days that I've gone through some of the challenges in my international stuff, I got pushed to the limit, and I was like, man, I feel challenged. I feel, I'm alive again, right?
Yeah.
Because I think those are things that, so for people, who are maybe wanting tips on how to grow, how to do well in career and life, I think it's really important to just test yourself and your abilities, and you would be amazed of how much you're capable of, right? So yeah, I think we can talk about international a little bit more. If you think that's, there's.
Let's talk mentorship because
okay.
That's interesting, and just for timeline's sake. So you worked with that software company
right.
in California. Did you transition straight from there to Dices, or did you have some intermediary?
No, I'd worked for another company, another
between?
tech company, called CompuWare.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I switched from technical into sales.
Mm-hmm. We all good there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I went from technical into sales.
Uh-huh.
That was my first break, and the reason why I moved into sales, I felt like at the time, and this goes back almost 15, 16 years now, I felt like, in any job, you have to convince people, right? Whether
any job.
Any job, you have
Literally,
to convince people,
yeah.
right? And convincing is.
I think what you just said right there is massively undervalued.
Right. Yeah. I was, it was my thinking. I don't know right or wrong at the time. I was like, I think if I want to be, CEO someday, I probably have to go convince investors, right? So, or if I am, managing a large team, I'm sure I have to go convince them of what I'm trying to accomplish and the direction I'm trying to take, them on, right? So that was my thinking, and I think I was lucky that my thinking, looking back, was correct. And I think, so that's why I got into sales, not because I just wanted to be. I think sales is a very, very valuable career. It is very rewarding. It's very rich. If you want to make tons of money, there's nothing like sales, right? And it's also very black and white. You either make it or you don't, and whatever you make is a result of your own effort. There's no other career that is as black and white as sales, right?
Yeah, really.
So,
it's interesting you say that. I literally just posted something on Instagram today that showed stats of the top 100 billionaires in the world, and it was something like 40% were all working as sales.